and welcome to another panoramic photography tutorial video. My name's Florian and I run the website pano.ie. As always, shameless plug right at the beginning. Please have a look at the website, and if you have any questions about what I'm covering today, give me a shout. I'll be more than happy to help you out. Now, what would I like to do today? Today, I'd like to show you a panorama that I shot very recently in Vienna. I wasn't very careful at the time of shooting, and also there'd been a lot of people walking around, so it's going to be a little bit challenging to stitch it together, but also to post-process it. Now, with these kinds of, especially when you're shooting pictures in crowds and when you're shooting handheld without a tripod, then you always need to find a certain balance or trade-off between how much time you spend in which program. So do you spend a lot of time in your Stitcher program setting control points and shifting things around to get things right out of the Stitcher, or do you draw a line at some point and then move on to a photo editing program where you manually fix the few remaining stitching errors? So today, this is just what I want to do. Basically give you a look, allow you to take a look over my shoulder. This is kind of relatively spontaneous. I had a very quick look at the panorama, but I don't really know where we're getting or how this is going to turn out. So it won't be as straightforward and linear as planned as the other tutorials that I've done so far. Again, if you haven't seen those, please have a look at those first. It'll give you a much better idea of what I'm doing here. So we'll start off by starting my favorite stitching and editing program, which is called Pt.7. And we're going to add the 6 images that I shot. Now, this was shot with a fisheye, with a 10mm fisheye with the lens shaved off on a full frame camera. So you almost get a circular image. There's just a little bit at the sides chopped off. And what I did is I shot 6 images around the horizontal and then 1 image up and 1 image down. As I said, I didn't shoot these images with a tripod. This was done handheld. So there's quite a lot of, well, it isn't as ideal as you'd get it with a tripod. So we will have to do, the Stitcher will have a few problems, and also we'll have to do some editing. Now, anyway, this is basically what you've seen in the previous tutorials. I'm going to run through this very quickly again. First, I'm going to set the crop so that Pt.7 knows this is the image and everything beyond that crop isn't. It already figured out through the EXIF data that it is a circular fisheye, that the field of view of the circle is going to be 180 degrees. I'm going to switch to the Advanced tab and tell the optimizer to optimize the hell out of everything, but I'm also going to have the last image viewpoint corrected. And the reason why that is the case is that that image I shot with my arm extended, so that's going to be particularly offset from the minimum parallax point. So I'm just going to use that to patch a little hole in the floor, but it's going to be offset from where the other shots have been shot. So only for this image I enable a viewpoint correction, and I will only set viewpoints on the ground plane. Again, things that all have been covered in the previous tutorials. So I'm just going to mask out that floor image quickly, just so that Pt.7 doesn't pick up any control points that is not on the ground plane. I'm holding the Shift key pressed here, as you can see, and that allows me to draw straight lines quite quickly, and that way you can mask out things at quite a fast pace, like so. Going around here, masking out everything that's not on the actual ground plane. There's a little bit left here on the side, but I don't worry about that. And the rest I just fill in with red, and that's it. So the next step is going to be align and find control points. Okay, 5, 6. Still working. There we go. Now, what have we got here? It said, well, it wasn't able to match all of them together. So in particular, it didn't find any control points for the 5th image. Image 5 doesn't have any control points yet. And the 5th image, that's my ground image. But that's fair enough. I'll come back to the ground image later. In the very last tab, the Create Panorama tab, you can actually deselect some images, and those images won't be included in the actual preview here in the panorama editor. So now you don't see the ground image, and that top image number 4 was the image vertically up. I'm excluding this for the moment as well now. So let's have a look what we get, because that's going to be problematic, as you'll see in a minute. That's why I'm excluding that image as well. So we have a little patch in the floor. There's a bunch of people chopped off, and we'll come back to those people later in Photoshop by exporting the panorama as layers and then masking things out. That's definitely one of the things that I wanted to show you. But we'll also have to deal with some lines. Now, what do we have? Let's first check that we get the panorama straight. And for that, I'm going to add vertical control points again, selecting the same image. In both tabs, I will pick a bunch of straight lines. I assume this beautiful Schönbrunn palace is kind of a straight object. So I'll pick one there, I'll go to the next one. Maybe I'll pick a line here. There's this double line. Again, I'm hoping that this this little hut, temporary hut, is also vertical. Again, going back to the columns back here, because I know those are going to be straight for sure. As I told you, be careful with things that you use for vertical control points, vertical lines, because sometimes they're not vertical, and your panorama won't be straight. So again, I'll pick this one here. These are not ideal lines, as I told you before. You definitely would like to have. Oh, that's a bit difficult. I'm going to pick this column here. You're better off having really long straight lines, but I didn't find any lines here. Just double checking. It's very hard to talk and add control points. Oh, see, no. Oh, whoa. Okay, there we go. I have to be careful here now. So we're walking up from this point on along this column. There we are. So ideally, so here again, it's asking, hey, I detected some vertical lines. Do you want to include those basically in the optimization? And say, yes, of course, please do so. Okay, we're getting a not so good. As you can see already, while the panorama is relatively straight, there are a bunch of problems. Here's one, for instance. If I go into the preview, see, there's a bit of an issue up there. But if I look here, there's something funny there. But it's not too bad, actually. And that's the ground image. As you can see, the ceiling isn't too bad either. I expected this to be a little bit worse, but maybe that'll save us some time. Okay. The next thing, so I'm kind of happy with the way this is. Let me just have a look how the control points are distributed. They're not too bad here. Maybe we'll add a few more because I'm interested in that line up here. Maybe we'll add another one up here. Oh, that's not very well done. A bit better here. What does the optimizer say? It's shifting things around a little bit more. Look at the preview, look up. It's not too bad. Looking down. So what we could do as well here for the floor image, we could basically just use Photoshop and just mask and just clone stem basically that whole away. But I still prefer to use the ground image. So I'm going to turn that back on, take the fifth image, close that thing. So, but the fifth image didn't have any control points yet. So I have to add those in manually. Let's just have a quick look. Oops, not this one. I want to turn this image here. So we have, this is the line down here, which you see going along there. So let me just pick image one. So, okay. So here you can see that's the stall here with all the wooden things, and that's the stall here. So this is where we are. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And again, I'm trying to find control points now. So matching points between both images that can be found in both images, but that also are on the ground plane. So first of all, I'm going to work my way along that front edge here because there's a few things that you can spot straight away. Here's a little gap there. Let's have a look. That should be somewhere around here. Yep, there's the gap. Shift over. There's a red thing on the ground. Let me pick that red thing. Another bit here. We'll shift over. Now we'll look further down. It's the end of that hut. I'll add this one in as well. Maybe it's something here. I'll just optimize this quickly. This isn't enough. We definitely want to add more images. But now PTGUI has a rough idea where this ground floor image is to go. So as you can see now, the cursor between both images, that already lines up fairly well, and that helps you a lot in picking identical points. So let's see, there's a little stone there, which you can see in both images. That's the one there. And we'll leave it at that. I'm not too sure about the gravel here on the floor because I might have stepped on it. Okay, there's one here which has definitely not been moved. So sometimes you want to be careful. If I used all the little gravel stones on the ground, but if I put my foot on it while taking the images, then obviously they won't match, and you could be introducing a big error like this. So let's just have a look again. Initialize and optimize. Initialize and optimize. Let's have a look at the images without any blending. You can see that's the ground floor images there. Now let me just optimize the we don't want to optimize, or maybe we do want to optimize the vignetting. Don't only want to fine-tune the exposure. We don't want to touch the white balance. We don't want to keep we don't want to touch the camera response curve either, because we're not doing HDR. So let's just optimize it on that. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. It's evened out a few things. Let's have a look at the preview. Okay, that's the ground there, definitely fixed. We'll need to work on these sort of ugly edges. You can see the difference between where the different images are blended into each other. And we do have the problem at the top. Now, I was planning on using the top image as well, but as you can see, this isn't looking too bad. We can definitely fix this in Photoshop. So I'll just leave the top image out for now. Now, I always like to do, especially in those situations where you have people walking around, what I like to use is the Smart Blend blender. So let's just have a quick look. When we look at this, the panorama editor, the preview we get in here, that is always using Pt.7's preview, and you can see a Pt.7's blender. So as you can see, it's not very smart. It's chopping this poor guy in half. But Smart Blend would actually would probably see that this is one guy, because he's entirely in one shot. Let's just use the mask editor to show you the image. There you go. The guy is completely in one shot, so there should be no problem. He shouldn't be sort of chopped in half, but the previewer does it now. Smart Blend is going to be smart enough not to chop this guy in half, but you don't get the Smart Blend preview in the Panorama editor unless you go through the preview tab. And that now is using Smart Blend, as you can see, to actually generate the preview of how the panorama will look like if I'd export it right now. So let's just have a quick look what Smart Blend's going to do. Okay, so we're not sure. So I don't think Smart Blend is using the floor at the moment. Now, the problem with Smart Blend, you have to keep in mind, it isn't very good with the very bottom or the very top of the image, because the way in the equirectangular file representation, as a long flat stretched thing, it doesn't really work well at the top and the bottom. It works really well on the horizontal, as you can see. It's doing a relatively good job. It's leaving the guy in one piece there. It's completely removed the guy in the blue top. Well, there's a bit of his foot left, but what I was trying to say is that it doesn't actually use the floor image. I think it doesn't use it very well anyway. The top is actually looking fairly well. As you can see, it leaves the sharp step there, which is fine. I'm happy with this because we can fix this very easy in Photoshop. The rest, I'm just looking at the stalls. They're looking fairly well as well. Yep. Okay. I think that's looking good. We'll do the rest, especially this guy here. We have to do quite a lot of tinkering in Photoshop, but this is looking good. Now, the only thing that I said is it doesn't use the floor image. How am I going to get it? How am I going to force it to use the floor image is, well, so in Pt.7, in the masking tab, you have a green pen where you could paint something in green, and the Pt.7 stitcher and blender, they would actually respect the green. So if you use green, that'll force it to use that part of the image. Now, Smart Blend doesn't respect the green stuff. It only respects the red color, and red means don't use this bit. So what I do now is I'll just paint across the bottom. I copy the mask and I paste that to all my images. What I'm doing now is I'm actually removing the floor there. Okay, I have to be careful with this guy's foot. So I'll leave a bit of space in there. But what I will do here is I basically prevent Smart Blend from using the floor bit and basically force it that way into using the ground part. So let's have a look at another preview here. And there you go. The ground looks a lot better. It's because it's using my ground image. There's a bit of a step introduced there, but that's fine. We'll fix that again. So at this point, as I said to you earlier in the introduction, you want to, as you get experience with with editing of your panoramic images, you'll get a feeling where you would draw a line. And at this moment, I'm going to draw a line here in Pt.7 and fix the rest of the stuff in Photoshop. Dismiss market. I'll just save the project in case anything goes wrong. I'm going to go to create panorama tab. I want to use the best interpolator. Don't use the fast transform. I'm going to leave out the fourth image. As I said, we don't really need this. Actually, if we don't need it, we can actually remove it. Let me kick this out and then re-optimize again. This is not bad. That's getting a bit better. Let's just double check here. Yep, this top's still there. And yeah, nothing really changed here. So, okay, at this point, we're good to go. Export the panorama, and I will talk to you. Oh, no, sorry. As I said, this is a bit very spontaneous, this recording. We're not just hitting export button just yet. The most important thing is what we want to do is we want to use the Photoshop format, and we want to select blended end layers. Now, what that's going to do is it'll blend the panorama together in Smart Blend, but it'll also give me the individual original layers without blending. And what we will use those then to fix all the problems with the people walking around in this image. And then ultimately we're going to fix the top and the bottom when we convert the image to cube face, but one step at a time. So blended end layers, Photoshop, and there we go. Now this is going to take a few moments, and I'll talk to you once this is done. Okay, so PTGUI's just finished working, as you can see, and it's finished saving. So let's take it from here in Photoshop. You can do this obviously in GIMP as well if you want to. I just prefer to use Photoshop. Now, okay, another thing we want to do is, well, maybe we have a look later. At the moment, I'm just going to be worried about fixing stitching errors with people. Okay, so what did he do here? Oh, he removed the man's feet. So, how are we going to, let me just tidy up this one a little bit, and we want to see the layers. Okay, how can we resize this out of the way? Okay, now, so this is the panorama blended as Smart Blend produced it, and we have two big major problems. There's one person here that's gone, well, half gone, and there's another person, the feet of this old man here have been removed as well, which isn't very nice either. So what I have here now is the original images. Let me just disable those masks. Oops. And we can see this is the original floor image. This is the image there with the lady. Now at this point we could make a decision. Do we want to have it look this way, or do we want to leave the gentleman in place? I would say we leave the gentleman in place, but we need the gentleman's feet. So in which image is the gentleman? The gentleman is from this image, and there are his feet. So I will need this image. I'll disable the mask. Again, this is a black mask now. So I use a brush. I use a very relatively, not the sharpest edge, but the second sharpest edge, because the reason is with gravel and a very chaotic ground like this, it sometimes looks better when you actually use a sharp edge rather than a soft edge. Okay, so that's this feedback I'm drawing with. So what I'm doing here is I've drawn a white blob onto the black mask, and that basically brings whatever's on this layer here will be made visible. So if I disable this, right? So from this layer, we only have the feet as contribution. Turn back on the base layer. Now I'm going to switch back to black, reduce my pen size just to remove that shadow here from the ground, and leave it in, and leave the original ground intact as well. Draw around it like that. And then again, you could, as always, you could always do this in much greater detail. What am I doing? You can always do this. Why is my brush size changing command not working? There we go. Sorry. You can always spend an infinite amount of time on this, but for the sake of this tutorial, I'll leave it at that. You can go into as much detail as you want to refine that edge. Maybe we'll leave it like that, and it'll look a little bit like a shadow under his foot. Okay, unless you know that this has been done, you wouldn't notice. Now, another problem was here with this gentleman. Now, we have two options here. We could use this gentleman from this image, but then we have a problem with this lady here, and we would have to basically draw a line along here. So remove the lady, use the gentleman, but remove this bit of that woman. Or version 2 is we can just not use this image at all, but basically try to remove this foot. But then you will still, you can see there's sort of a blending edge between the two images here, and that doesn't look nice. And this would be very hard to fix, the color cast between these two images. So what I'll do is I will leave the guy in place, but I'll remove the lady next to him. So let me just draw with a brush white. I'll just roughly draw the guy back in like so, and then we'll have to look after the lady afterwards. There's his arm there and the foot. Okay, now from this image then we want to remove the lady here. And this is going to be relatively difficult to mask this in a convincing way. But again, this is all down to your Photoshop editing skills. Now this is relatively basic stuff, what I'm doing here. Oops, no, that was too much. Again, only doing this quick and dirty here because I don't want to bore you to death with pixel peeping. Okay, so that's relatively good. Again, you could refine the edge later as to your heart's content. Do I leave this woman behind him? No, I'll remove the foot, remove the shoe of that lady there as well. Go back to the original, because it'll look strange with this one shoe looking from behind. Okay, that's it there. Just work around the ground here a little bit as well, just to match the two, to blend the two images into one another. So basically these kinds of things, this is what your Blender would do as well, but as you can see it didn't do a very, well, it didn't do an ideal job of course, but it did do a really good job anyway. But what we're doing here is we're just helping it a little bit to make the right decisions. Okay, and I believe this is looking relatively good. We can just remove some of this. Again, what I'm doing here is I'll turn this off. What I'm just removing is some of that stuff taken. Oh, that was a bit too much. Removing from that layer here, just so that he blends in better with the other image that was there before. Remove him here. Lady there. Oop. Switch back. So I'm just using the B like brush X to change back and forth between black and white, and the bracket keys to change the size of my brush. Okay, oops, I want to do plain black on here. There's a half person there. Again, you can spend as much time as you want on this. But yeah, there you go. So, because that's another question that I get from people, that they're always impressed how everything's so perfect. Well, it isn't perfect out of the box, and it isn't perfect out of the stitcher. Sometimes you do have to help it, and almost all of the panoramas on my website, because I shoot so much handheld, almost all of them have been edited like this. Sometimes, I mean, this is a really crucial, this is quite a big editing here, because that woman was half chopped off. Normally I don't have to do that much editing, but this is quite an extreme image, and that's why I picked it for the tutorial. So as we can see, there's some more problems here. So I have to remove as much as I can from him, right, from this layer here, because it doesn't blend well with what is there in the background. So let's see, that's good there. Does it introduce, oh, he has another step in his head there. Okay. And the rest seems to match up nicely. Nice enough anyway. Refine that edge here a little bit better. Okay. Right, now another issue that we did have was here on this. And here comes another very useful trick I want to show you now. And that really was a big eye-opener for me when I saw it. What you do is you use a polygonal. So the problem here is, no matter how much clone stamping I do, or masking, I will have somewhere a break in this line. And even trying to clone stamp it over will be very difficult. But The best thing you really want to do is to bend that line down. And there's a way of doing this in Photoshop. So what you do is you'll do a polygonal lasso selection like this. I hit Command-Shift-C on the Mac. I don't know what it is on Windows. And that takes a copy of whatever's inside here and Command-Shift-V and pastes it in place. So this is, as you can see, I just copy-pasted this bit in here. Now, using that selection, I will go to Edit, Transform, and Skew. And then you can use those side bits here and just bend it up ever so slightly. Oops, I'm looking at this edge here. This is what I'm worried about. Bend it up until it matches up nicely. Then I hit S for stamp, and then I'll just clone stamp over that edge here. And you never saw that there's an editing. Another thing I'll do is I use the eraser. And because we did this bending, you can see a little bit of repetition on the ground. And unfortunately, our eyes are really good at spotting these kinds of repetitions. So what I'll do is I'll just try to break it up somehow. Okay, it's not working really well when you have gravel on the ground. You could try to clone stamp from other areas of the image, or you can leave it. So sometimes you will have problems with the edges from those when you do the bending trick, the skewing trick. You will have problems with the edges. But that's only because of the gravel. And the minute you shift everything over a couple of pixels, then your eyes will pick it up right away. If this was a different kind of background without such a chaotic pattern, then you usually wouldn't spot the edge. Here's another bit like this. So I'm going to bend it down from this side this time. Move over here. Command-Shift-C, Command-Shift-V. Edit, Transform, Skew. And again, we have a problem with the edge there. As you can see on the stones, we don't have that edge problem. It's only really because of the nature of that edge that we have this little problem there. But I'll just use the eraser here to remove the edge. There's still a bit left there, but I won't be fussed about that. Now, let me just scan through the images if there are any other problems. Of course, we still have that problem here at the top, and it's going to be quite difficult to edit this in Photoshop, but we'll do this later when we convert the panorama to cube faces. Just scanning for all the straight lines that I'm scanning right now to see if there's any stitching errors. There's another bit here. So let me just, for the sake of repetition, show you that trick again. I'll just do a polygonal selection, Command-Shift-C, Command-Shift-V, Edit, Transform, Skew, bend it like Beckham, and then I'm only using a trackpad on my laptop, so it's a bit hard to do those very fine-grained movements. And for the rest of the edge, I'll just clone stamp over. And then I erase some of this bit up here that's been stamped over. Okay, this isn't doing a really good job here, but you get the idea. If you spend a little bit more time on it. No. Try and maybe sample from this. No, I'll sample from this side. Bit more. No. Try one more. There we go. I'll leave it at that. Do we see any other issues anywhere? Check here, just looking again along the straight edges or any other types of stitching problems. Don't really see much here. The ground, we can't do anything about it as well in this projection. I think we'll leave it at that. Yep. Okay, so we have fixed this gentleman's feet down here. Just look at the crowd quickly if there's any other people chopped in half. That usually doesn't look very good. No, but I think the crowd there is good, and we checked the other side. Everybody's been left in one piece here. Yeah, that's looking good enough. Okay, so we'll leave it at this. You can see there's the problem up there that we saw earlier in PTGUI as well, at the very top where the roof didn't join up very well between different images. Now what I could have done is use the vertical up image that I shot and place it on there, but I just spontaneously made the decision not to do that, but to do it again in post-processing and editing this image. So what I'll do now is I'll save this, as a TIFF file with everything, with no layers, but everything merged down. So all the layers, all those things are being collapsed into one layer now. And that's that. Let's have a quick look how this is going to look like in full resolution. For that, I'm using the PanoGL view, which, as I said earlier, is part of the Huggin package. If you Google for PanoGL view, you'll find the Huggin source footage repository, and you'll also find the PanoGL view among that. And this is for Mac only. For Windows, you should be using the FSP viewer. I used to use the FSP viewer, Full View Sonora viewer. I think that's what FSP stands for. Now, we have the big problem here at the top, but what we're going to do as well is we're just going to bend that line down and do a bit of clone stamping, and then that problem is solved. But apart from that, let's just have a look at the floor. The floor is looking really good. Don't think there needs to be done any work on this. And we've got the gentleman fixed here with that half person removed. And then there was the feet of this gentleman there. They also look good. Okay, so the only thing left to do now is fix that vertical up bit here. Normally you're worried about the floor bit, but we've fixed this, and what the issue here is rather with the top this time. So let me just open the KR Pano folder. Nope, not this one. Let's have a look at this guy here, KR Pano. And what we're looking for is the sphere to cube droplet. Convert sphere to cube. And now what this does is it just converts the equirectangular image, which is this one here, and produces 6 cube faces. And then we're going to use the cube face, which is going vertically up to fix that top bit. If you don't have the KR Pano tools, there's a bunch of different ways. And again, one of my earlier tutorial videos shows you how you can do this with PTGUI as well, as an alternative if you don't have KR Pano. So what we're looking for, this is back, down, this would be front, left, right, and up. So we're looking for the up image. Let me open this up in Photoshop. There we go. So here's that ugly bit of ceiling at the top. As I said, I will just bend it down like Beckham. Sorry, I don't know why I keep using this terrible phrase, but that's the selection I'm going to use for this. Copy, paste, edit, transform, skew. I'll skew it down to there. And I use a big clone stamp now to work over that edge like so, and just remove some of that, and that's basically it. So, well, okay, there's a bit of a leftover, I think, from the blending step where this is a bit bright. So what I might spontaneously try to do is just burn this bit. Nope, I always mix up the burning and dodging, so I will be dodging it. Where's my brush? Oh, it's a very big brush. There we go. And let's see if we darken it down. No, it's not having any effect. Bring this up. No, if you have... Okay, that's brightening it up. Okay, so apologies here. Burning is right. You can see I've never been in a dark room, sadly. So I don't know these terms off the top of my head. If you know a good way of remembering what's dodge and burn. Why is this not having any effect here? All right, I'm making a complete fool of myself. I've just been trying to edit this layer rather than the background layer. So let me merge those two up, and then, there we go. That's looking better. Okay, bit easier. So what we do want to do is we want to burn it to darken it down a little bit, and then I'll just paint over this ever so slightly, and that makes a little bit less obvious that, yep, that's better. And then there's another little bit here, so maybe I'll just clone stamp. It's very hard to see, but I'll just clone stamp over it, and then that's looking fair enough. Yeah, you can still see the transition there a little bit, but again, let's see if I use a bit smaller, slightly smaller brush. No, it's not a lot better. Anyway, spend as much time as you like on these types of issues, just trying to give you an idea of what's possible. No. See, my trackpad always shifts over ever so slightly at the end. Okay, I'll leave it at that. Anyway, you can spend, as I said, you can spend hours on this. I'll leave it at that. So I'll save this file. Now, all I need to do is just convert those 6 cube faces back to equirectangular using this droplet here. I've made those myself, just hacking the command line tools. Oh, unable to detect cube side. Oh, of course, I wasn't using the correct files here. There we go. As you can see, my mind isn't really focused right now because I'm trying to talk and do things at the same time. I'm not very good at that. So now it's converting those 6 cube faces back to one equirectangular file. It's reassembling them into one panorama. There we go. This is the file here. Almost done. 100%. And I'll just drop this in. No, I've closed it down. So I will go again. Service open with PanoGL view to just double check that what we did actually works out fine. Now, I assume that this is going to look fine, and I'll call it a day after that. So thanks for your attention. I'm sorry this was not as linear and straightforward and clean cut as the other tutorials were. But again, I haven't done one in ages, and I wanted to get back to you because there's so many people subscribed to my channel now that I wanted to give them something. So there you go. That's the top bit fixed, taken care of. The rest of the image we had a look at. I'll upload this image to 360s as well, and I'll place a link down below in the description, and you can have a look at it yourself. So thanks a lot for your attention again, for bearing with me through this very long tutorial. Happy New Year. There's almost New Year now, 2011 turning 2012. So I wish you a very successful 2012 with loads of panoramas. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to get back to me or have a look at my website that I just closed down. It's pano.ie. All right. Thanks a million. Bye.